The rain hammered down like angry fists on the roof of the black car. Inside, Simeon Hart gripped the leather steering wheel, so tight his knuckles turned white. In the back seat, a woman named Nia held a small boy close to her chest. The boy was burning up with fever, shaking like a leaf in winter wind. "Please, Simeon," Nia whispered. Her voice cracked like breaking glass. "He needs a hospital. He needs you." The boy's name was Josiah. He was only 4 years old. His brown eyes were half closed, glassy with sickness. In his tiny hands, he clutched a yellow toy dump truck. Even burning with fever, even barely awake, he would not let that truck go. His fingers wrapped around it like it was the only real thing in the world. Simeon looked at them in the rear-view mirror. His heart pounded in his chest like thunder. He saw the boy's face, those eyes that looked just like his own eyes. The same curve of the cheek, the same shape of the nose. Anyone who really looked would know. Anyone who saw them together would see the truth, and that truth could destroy everything. Simeon Hart was not just any man. He was a billionaire. His face was on magazine covers. People knew his name in every city. He owned buildings that touched the sky. He made deals worth millions before breakfast. Important people called him for advice. Powerful people wanted to be his friend. But nobody knew about Nia. Nobody knew about the boy. 3 years ago, Nia had worked in his office. She was smart and kind, with a smile that made the whole room brighter. They talked. They laughed. One night turned into something more. Then Nia left the company. Months later, she came back with a baby and papers that proved Simeon was the father. He gave her money. Lots of money. Enough to keep her quiet. Enough to keep her away. He made her sign papers that said she would never tell anyone. He thought money could make problems disappear like magic. But problems don't disappear. They grow. Now. 3 years later, Nia stood at his office door with tears in her eyes and a sick child in her arms. Josiah had been sick for 2 days. The fever would not break. He needed a doctor. He needed his father to sign hospital papers. He needed someone to claim him, to say, "This is my son," so the doctors would help. But Simeon could not do that. Would not do that. Tomorrow, he had the biggest meeting of his life. Newspapers would be there. Television cameras. The president of the country wanted to give him an award for his business success. They would take pictures. They would ask questions about his perfect life, his perfect image. How could he explain a secret child? How could he stand on that stage with everyone knowing he had hidden this boy, denied him, pushed him away? His business partners would turn their backs. His investors would pull their money. Everything he built would crumble like a sand castle hit by waves. So here they were, on a dark road in the middle of nowhere, rain pouring down from angry clouds. "I gave you money," Simeon said, his voice cold and hard like stone. "Use it. Take him to a hospital yourself. They won't treat him without a parent's signature." Nia cried. "The insurance needs your name. Please, he's your son." Josiah coughed. It was a terrible sound, wet and rattling. His small body shook. He held that yellow truck tighter. Simeon's mind raced. He thought about the cameras tomorrow. He thought about his clean, perfect reputation. He thought about his empire. Then he made a choice that would haunt him forever. He pulled the car to the side of the road. The rain was falling even harder now. Through the windows, there was nothing but darkness and trees. "Get out," he said quietly. "What?" Nia stared at him like he had just grown 2 heads. "Get out of my car. Take the boy. I will wire you more money in the morning. Figure out yourself." "Simeon, we're in the middle of nowhere. It's pouring rain. He's sick. He could die. That's not my problem." The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but he said them anyway. Nia's face changed. The hope in her eyes died like a candle blown out. She looked down at Josiah, then back at Simeon. "You're going to leave your own child on the side of the road? In the rain? While he's sick?" "He's not my child," Simeon lied. "I gave you money to go away. That was our deal. Now get out or I'll call the police and tell them you're trying to blackmail me." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Nia knew he would do it. Rich men like Simeon Hart always won. They had lawyers. They had power. They had everyone believing their side of every story. Slowly, Nia opened the car door. Rain rushed in like a living thing. She gathered Josiah in her arms, trying to shield him from the cold water. The boy's eyes opened a little. He looked confused and scared. "Mama," he whispered. His voice was so small. "It's okay, baby," Nia lied. "It's going to be okay." She stepped out into the storm. The door slammed shut. Through the rain-covered window, Simeon watched them standing there. Nia was soaked in seconds. Josiah's little yellow truck slipped from his weak fingers and fell into the mud. "No!" the boy cried, reaching for it. But he was too weak, too sick. Nia bent down and grabbed the muddy truck, pressing it back into Josiah's hands. She looked back at the car one last time. Her eyes met Simeon's through the glass. In that moment, she didn't look sad anymore. She looked like someone making a promise that this would not be forgotten. Then Simeon pressed his foot on the gas pedal. The car pulled away, leaving them in the darkness. In his rear-view mirror, he saw them getting smaller and smaller until they disappeared into the rain and night. His hands were shaking. His chest felt tight. But he told himself he had made the right choice. He told himself that protecting his image, his business, his future was more important. He told himself the boy would be fine. Nia was smart. She would figure it out. He told himself these lies all the way home. The next day, Simeon Hart stood on a bright stage wearing his best suit. Cameras flashed like lightning. People clapped. The president shook his hand and gave him a golden award. Everyone said he was a great man, a successful man, a man who had everything. But late that night, alone in his giant house, Simeon sat in the dark. He kept seeing those small hands clutching a yellow truck. He kept seeing those sick, confused eyes looking up at him through the rain. He poured himself a drink and tried to forget. But some things don't let you forget. Some things follow you forever. 15 years passed like water through fingers. Simeon Hart's empire grew bigger and bigger. He owned hotels in 12 countries. His company built roads and bridges. His name was on hospitals and schools. People wrote books about how smart he was. Students studied his business moves in college classes. But money cannot buy peace, and success cannot erase memories. Every night, Simeon dreamed the same dream. He was driving in the rain. In his rear-view mirror, a small boy stood in the mud, holding a yellow toy truck. The boy's eyes stared at him with a question that had no good answer. "Why did you leave me?" Simeon would wake up sweating, his heart racing like he had run a marathon. He would sit up in his huge bed in his giant mansion and look around at all his expensive things. None of it made the dream go away. None of it made him feel better. His wife, Catherine, noticed. Of course she noticed. She was a smart woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "You've been having nightmares again," she said one morning over breakfast. Sunlight poured through their enormous windows. Everything in their home was beautiful and perfect. Everything except the man sitting across from her. "Just stress," Simeon lied. "The new hotel project in Dubai." Catherine studied him over her coffee cup. They had been married for 10 years. She loved him, but she also knew he kept secrets. Big ones. She just didn't know what they were. "Maybe you should see someone," she suggested gently. "A therapist. Someone to talk to." "I'm fine," Simeon said quickly. Too quickly. But he was not fine. He had not been fine for 15 years. Some nights, Simeon sat in his home office and searched the internet. He typed in names, trying to find traces of them. Nia Hale, Josiah Hale. But it was like they had vanished into smoke. No social media profiles. No addresses. Nothing. Part of him was relieved. If he couldn't find them, they couldn't find him. They couldn't ruin everything he had built. But another part of him, a quiet part he tried to ignore, wondered if the boy had even survived that night. Had Nia found help in time? Had Josiah's fever broken, or had it taken him away forever? The thought made Simeon sick to his stomach. 5 years after that rainy night, guilt had eaten at him like rust on metal. He created a secret bank account. Every month, he put money in it. Lots of money. He hired a private investigator to find Nia and Josiah, but the investigator came back with nothing. They had disappeared completely. So Simeon donated to children's hospitals instead. He gave millions. He funded research for childhood diseases. He built clinics in poor neighborhoods. People praise him for his generosity. They call him a hero for helping sick children. But Simeon knew the truth. He was not a hero. He was trying to pay back a debt that could never be paid. He was trying to save thousands of children because he had abandoned one. It didn't work. The guilt stayed. At fancy parties, Simeon would see fathers playing with their sons. He would watch them laugh together, throw balls, share ice cream. Something inside him would crack a little more each time. He had a stepdaughter now, Catherine's child from her first marriage. He tried to be good to her. But every time he looked at her, he thought about the son he had thrown away. The yellow truck haunted him in strange ways. Once at a business meeting in Chicago, he walked past a toy store window. There in the display was a yellow dump truck, just like the one Josiah had held. Simeon stopped walking. People bumped into him, annoyed, but he couldn't move. He stood there staring at that truck for 10 minutes while the city rushed around him. Finally, he went inside and bought it. The saleswoman wrapped it in bright paper with a bow. "For your son?" she asked with a kind smile. "Yes," Simeon whispered, "for my son." But when he got back to his hotel room, he sat on the bed holding that wrapped truck and cried for the first time in years. He cried for the boy he never knew. He cried for the father he never became. He cried for the choice he made on that dark, rainy road. The truck sat in his office safe after that. Sometimes, when he was alone late at night, he would take it out and hold it. He would remember those tiny hands, that fevered face, those eyes that looked just like his own. "I'm sorry," he would whisper to the empty room. "I'm so sorry." But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry couldn't change the past. Sorry couldn't bring back 15 lost years. Simeon threw himself into work. If he stayed busy enough, maybe he wouldn't have time to think. He made more deals. He built more buildings. He worked 18-hour days until he was so tired he could barely stand. His assistant, Marcus, worried about him. "Boss, you need to slow down. You'll make yourself sick." "I'm fine," Simeon always said. That lie again. On the 15th anniversary of that night, Simeon did something he had never done before. He got drunk, really drunk. He sat alone in his office with a bottle of whiskey and drank until the room spun. He pulled out the toy truck from his safe and set it on his desk. In his drunken haze, he talked to it like it could hear him. "I was afraid," he slurred. "I was so afraid of losing everything. My business, my reputation, everything I worked for. I thought I was protecting my future. But I threw away something more important. I threw away you." The truck sat there, silent and yellow, a bright spot of color in his dark office. "Are you alive?" Simeon asked it. "Did you make it? Are you out there somewhere, hating me? Do you even remember me? Do you remember that night?" The truck had no answers. Simeon fell asleep at his desk that night, his cheek pressed against the cold wood, one hand touching the yellow truck. He dreamed of rain and darkness and a small boy disappearing into the storm. The next morning, Marcus found him there. "Mr. Hart? Sir? Are you all right?" Simeon woke up with a splitting headache and shame burning in his chest. He quickly put the truck back in the safe before Marcus could ask questions. "I'm fine," he said again. Always the same lie. But Marcus saw something in his boss's eyes that day. Something broken. Something haunted. Something that all the money in the world couldn't fix. That afternoon, Simeon was in a meeting with lawyers and investors. They were talking about a new project worth hundreds of millions. Everyone was excited. Papers were being signed. Champagne was being poured to celebrate. Then Marcus opened the door. His face was pale. "Mr. Hart, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent. He says it's personal." Simeon frowned. "Tell them to make an appointment." "Sir, I think you need to see this person now." Marcus's voice was strange, shaky. Something in his assistant's tone made Simeon's blood run cold. "Who is it?" Marcus swallowed hard. He wouldn't give his name. "But, sir, he left something for you at the front desk." Marcus held up his hand, and it was a toy, old and battered and covered in scratches from years of being held and loved and carried. A yellow dump truck. The room spun. Simeon's ears filled with a rushing sound like ocean waves. His hands started to shake. All the investors and lawyers stared at him, confused by his reaction. "Clear the room," Simeon said quietly. "Sir," someone asked. "I said clear the room. Get out. All of you. Now." Everyone scrambled to leave, grabbing papers and briefcases, whispering to each other about what could be wrong. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway. "Where is he?" Simeon whispered. "In your private office," Marcus said. Should I call security?" "No." Simeon stood up. His legs felt weak, like they might not hold him. "No. Leave us alone. Don't let anyone disturb us. No matter what you hear." Marcus nodded slowly and left, closing the door behind him. Simeon stood there alone, staring at that yellow truck in his assistant's wake. After 15 years of searching, of wondering, of nightmares and guilt and shame, the past had finally found him. It was time to face what he had done. Simeon walked down the long hallway to his private office. Each step felt like walking through deep water. His heart hammered, so hard he could hear it in his ears. His hands were ice cold. He reached for the door handle, stopped, took a breath, then opened the door. Inside, standing by the window looking out at the city, was a young man. He was 19 years old, tall and lean, wearing simple clothes. He had his hands in his pockets. He didn't turn around when Simeon entered, but even from behind, Simeon knew. He knew those shoulders, that way of standing, that shape of the head. He knew because he saw himself at that age. "Josiah," Simeon whispered. The young man finally turned around, and Simeon's heart shattered into a million pieces. He was looking into his own face, older but unmistakable. The same eyes, the same nose, the same mouth. There was no denying it, no hiding from it anymore. Josiah stared at his father with eyes that held no warmth, no love, just cold, hard truth. "Hello, Dad," he said. His voice was calm and steady. "We need to talk." The office felt too small suddenly, like the walls were moving closer. Simeon couldn't breathe right. He stared at the young man who was his son, and his son stared back with eyes that could cut through steel. "Sit down," Josiah said. It wasn't a request. It was a command. Simeon, the man who gave orders to thousands of people, who made powerful men nervous, who controlled empires, sat down in his own chair like an obedient child. Josiah reached into a backpack and pulled out a folder. He walked to Simeon's massive desk and dropped it there with a heavy thud. Paper spilled out. Hospital records. A birth certificate. Photos of a little boy with a yellow truck. And one photo that made Simeon's stomach twist. A small boy lying in a hospital bed, tubes and wires connected to his thin arms. "Do you remember that night?" Josiah asked. His voice was quiet, but it filled the whole room. Simeon opened his mouth, closed it. No words would come. "Let me help you remember," Josiah continued. He picked up the yellow dump truck from where he'd set it on a shelf. It was raining. I was 4 years old. I had a fever that made me feel like I was on fire. I could barely see straight. But I held this truck because it was the only thing that made me feel safe. He held the truck up to the light. It was scratched and faded, but you could still see it had been loved. My mother begged you to help. She begged you to take me to a hospital. She begged you to just sign some papers so the doctors would treat me. Josiah's voice got harder. "And you threw us out of your car. In the rain. In the middle of nowhere. You drove away and left a sick 4-year-old child on the side of the road." "Josiah, Don't." Josiah held up his hand. "Don't say you're sorry. Don't say you were young and scared. Don't give me excuses. I'm not here for excuses." Simeon felt tears burning his eyes, but he didn't let them fall. How did you survive?" For the first time, something flickered across Josiah's face. "Pain. Oh, deep pain. My mother carried me 3 miles in that rain. 3 miles to the nearest house. By the time we got there, I was barely breathing. The people who lived there, complete strangers, drove us to a hospital. They'd pay for everything because you wouldn't." Josiah picked up one of the hospital papers. "I had pneumonia. The doctor said another hour, and I would have died. Another hour, Dad. 60 more minutes, and your problem would have solved itself. The word, Dad, sounded like a curse coming from his mouth. Where's Nia? Simeon asked. Where's your mother? Josiah's jaw tightened. She died 6 years ago. Cancer. She worked 3 jobs to raise me, trying to make up for the money you stopped sending after that night. She was tired all the time. So tired. When she finally went to a doctor, it was too late. The words hit Simeon like punches. Nia was dead. The woman he had loved once, the woman he had thrown away, was gone forever. I'm sorry, Simeon whispered. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't bring her back. Josiah's eyes were dry, but his voice shook with anger. Sorry doesn't give me back my childhood. Sorry doesn't erase the kids at school who made fun of me for not having a father. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Then why are you here? Simeon asked. Why now, after all these years? Josiah smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Because my mother made me promise something before she died. She made me promise to find you, not to get money, not to get revenge, but to give you a choice. He pulled out more papers from his backpack. These were different, official-looking, legal documents. Here's your choice, Dad. You can do what you've done for 19 years. You can deny me. You can offer me money to go away and stay quiet. You can protect your perfect image and your perfect life. Josiah paused. Or you can tell the truth. The truth? Simeon's voice cracked. Tomorrow, you're giving a speech at the National Business Awards. Thousands of people will be watching. Cameras everywhere. Everyone calling you a hero, a role model, a man of integrity. Josiah leaned forward. Stand up there and tell them what you really are. Tell them you abandoned your sick son. Tell them you left a 4-year-old to die on a rainy road. Tell them the truth. Simeon felt like the floor was falling away beneath him. That would destroy everything. My company, my reputation, everything I've built. Exactly, Josiah said coldly. Everything you built on lies. Everything you built while I grew up without a father. While my mother worked herself to death. While I wondered every single day why I wasn't good enough for you to love. Tears finally fell down Simeon's cheeks. I did love you. I do love you. I was afraid. Afraid of what? Losing money? Losing respect. Josiah's voice rose. I was afraid of dying. I was 4 years old, sick and scared, and my own father looked at me like I was garbage. The room went silent. Both men were breathing hard. The yellow truck sat on the desk between them, a witness to everything. If I tell the truth, Simeon said slowly, I lose everything. If you don't tell the truth, Josiah replied, you lose me forever. You'll never see me again. You'll die one day wondering what kind of man your son became. And I'll spend the rest of my life knowing my father chose money over his own child. Twice. Simeon looked down at the papers on his desk. Hospital records showing how close to death Josiah had come. The birth certificate with father, unknown written in cold, official type because Simeon had refused to sign it. Photos of a little boy who looked exactly like him, growing up in apartments too small, wearing clothes too worn, smiling anyway because children don't know they're supposed to be sad about poverty. He thought about Catherine, his wife, who would leave him when she learned the truth. He thought about his business partners who would drop him like a hot stone. He thought about the empire he had built over 30 years, how it would crumble in a single day. Then he looked at Josiah, really looked at him, saw the man his son had become despite everything. Strong, brave, smart enough to track down a father who did want to be found, honorable enough to give him a choice instead of just destroying him. What if... Simeon's voice was barely a whisper. What if I tell the truth and you still hate me? What if I lose everything and don't get you back? Josiah was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. I don't know if we can ever be a real father and son. But at least I'll know you finally chose to do the right thing. At least I'll know that truth mattered more to you than your image. And if I choose to stay silent, then you're the same man who left me on that road. and you'll die alone, surrounded by money and lies. Simeon closed his eyes. He thought about that night 15 years ago. The rain, the darkness, the small hands clutching a yellow truck, the choice he made that haunted every single day since. He thought about all the nightmares, all the guilt, all the money he gave to children's hospitals trying to pay back a debt that couldn't be paid, all the years of pretending to be someone he wasn't. He was so tired, tired of lying, tired of hiding, tired of being afraid. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll tell the truth." Josiah's eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected that. "You mean it?" "Yes." Simeon stood up. His legs felt shaky, but he stood. "Tomorrow, at the awards ceremony, I'll tell everyone what I did. I'll tell them about you. I'll tell them everything." "And your business? Your reputation?" "Let it burn," Simeon said. "All of it. If that's what it costs to finally be honest, let it burn." For the first time, Josiah's hard expression softened just a little. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but something. A crack in the wall. "I'll be there," Josiah said. "In the audience. I want to hear you say it." "I'll say it," Simeon promised. "I'll say every word." Josiah picked up his backpack. He started to leave, then stopped at the door. He looked back at the yellow truck, still sitting on the desk. "Keep it," he said quietly. "So, you remember." Then he was gone. The next day, Simeon Hart stood on the biggest stage of his life. Thousands of people filled the auditorium. Cameras from every news station pointed at him. Important people sat in the front rows, ready to celebrate his success. His prepared speech sat in his pocket. A speech about hard work and dedication, and never giving up on your dreams. All the things people expected him to say. He looked out into the audience. There, in the middle section, sat Josiah. Their eyes met. Josiah gave him a small nod. Simeon took a deep breath. Then he stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you all for coming today," he began. "I'm supposed to give you an inspiring speech about success. But instead, I'm going to tell you the truth about what kind of man I really am." A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Catherine, sitting in the front row, looked up sharply. She knew something was wrong. 19 years ago, Simeon continued, his voice shaking but clear, I committed the worst act of my life. I abandoned my 4-year-old son on the side of a road. He was sick, dying, and I left him there in the rain because I was more worried about my reputation than his life. The room exploded. People gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters started typing frantically. Catherine's face went pale as snow. But Simeon kept talking. He told them everything. The affair with Nia, the secret child, the papers he refused to sign, the rainy night, the little boy with the yellow truck. He told them about the guilt that ate him alive for 15 years. He told them about the son he threw away. My son's name is Josiah Hale, Simeon said, pointing to the audience. He's here today, and he's a better man than I could ever be, because he had the courage to face me when I didn't have the courage to face myself. Josiah stood up. Cameras swung to him. People stared. The resemblance was impossible to miss. I don't deserve forgiveness, Simeon said. I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm done lying. I'm done hiding. Whatever happens to me now, I've earned it. But my son, Josiah, deserves to know that his father finally chose him, finally chose truth, finally chose what was right, even if it was 15 years too late. The room was dead silent. Then security started moving toward the stage. Simeon's business partners were standing up, their faces red with anger. His lawyers were on their phones. His world was ending in real time. But Simeon didn't care. He looked at Josiah and his son was crying. Not angry tears. Something else. Something complicated that wasn't forgiveness, but wasn't hate anymore either. Simeon stepped down from the stage. Security tried to grab him, but he pushed past them. He walked straight to Josiah. They stood face to face in the middle of the chaos. I know I can't fix what I did, Simeon said. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life trying. Not as your boss. Not as someone who gives you money. As your father. The father I should have been all along. Josiah stared at him for a long, long moment. The whole auditorium watched. Cameras captured everything. Then, slowly, Josiah held out his hand. Simeon took it. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't forgiveness. It was something smaller. Something that might, one day, grow into something more. A beginning. The news spread around the world in hours. Simeon Hart lost everything, just like he knew he would. His business partners forced him out. His company's stock crashed. His wife divorced him. His award were taken back. His name became a lesson in shame instead of success. But he also gained something. It took months before Josiah agreed to have coffee with him. It took a year before they could sit together, without awkwardness and pain hanging between them. It took 3 years before Josiah called him Dad, and meant it as something other than an accusation. The road to forgiveness was long and hard. Some days, Josiah couldn't stand to look at him. Some days, Simeon woke up and couldn't believe his son was giving him any chance at all. But they walked that road together, one step at a time, one conversation at a time, one painful, honest, difficult moment at a time. And in Simeon's small apartment, on a shelf where he could see it every day, sat a yellow toy dump truck, a reminder of what he had done, a reminder of what he had almost lost forever, a reminder that some choices can never be unmade, but sometimes, if you're very lucky and very brave, you get a chance to make better ones. So what would you do? If your father left you on a rainy road when you were sick and dying, could you ever forgive him? If you were that father, would you have the courage to tell the truth and lose everything? These are hard questions with no easy answers. The truth is, money can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy back time. It can't erase pain, and it can't force someone to forgive you. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we were wrong, even when it costs us everything. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is give someone a second chance, even when they don't deserve it. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Would you forgive or walk away forever? If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that will make you think, feel, and see the world differently. New stories every week. Thanks for reading, and remember, it's never too late to choose truth over lies and courage over fear. See you in the next story.